Reading scholars, and welcome to Chapter 11, Collaborate Recording, Ethical Leadership. Some of this is common sense, or a lot of it might be, or you might know it by other terms from your working life, or perhaps you've taken a leadership course either at work or at school. But in any event, the old saying, the fish rots from the head down, and so does acting right. So the book defines, or the authors define, leadership as the ability to, or authority to guide and direct others toward a goal. Good leaders be very motivational, fun to work for, and companies can be very successful. A lot of CEOs might talk about things, but they don't walk the walk. They just talk about it. Employees see that, witness that, and say, well, if he or she does it, they just pay lip service to that. So I'm not worried about it. But a good leader can influence the corporate culture and ethical posture in a mighty way. So Table 11.2 of the book gives some 7 habits of strong ethical leaders. Strong personal character, have a passion to do right. I might change that and just say, just do right. They're proactive, so they look for problems. They don't turn a blind eye to problems and try to fix things that before they become a big problem. And that's the best way to be profitable. They consider everybody's interests, those below them, as well as those above them, and those equal with them. Everybody has gets a say, and they think about everyone's interests. They're role models for the values the organization espouses. Transparent and actively involved in decision making, so they don't weasel around behind. They're not publicly compliant, and then privately they're defiant. They are what they are, and they take a holistic view of the firm's culture. Everything from sales and promises made to order delivery and promises made, and how people act with their expense reports, how accounting is booking sales. You get it. Everything. If you have people's respect and you provide a standard of conduct, then you should still have written codes of ethics, but they become less important because people just know what the right thing is to do, and it's the leader is an exemplar, whether it be the leader of your department, of your group, or of the company. And you can see that in a lot of national companies that have strong ethical leaders. Normative myopia. What is that? When leaders overlook or stifle important core values in decisions. So, number one, we've talked about already in this course that the rules of business, the rules don't change when you walk to the business place on Monday morning. A lot of times people will say, well, it's just business. I wouldn't do that in my personal life, but this is business. It should all be the same. The right thing is generally always the right thing. And the wrong thing, most of the time, is the wrong thing. There's some, as I've talked about before, there's shades of gray. But normative myopia, a leader, would believe that values do not apply to the managerial decisions. Facts and values can be separated. When you're making a decision, I've heard people say, yeah, I hate to let those people go, but I did it so we could save these other jobs. And a lot of times I've seen it in the workplace. That's not really the case. They let a bunch of people go to keep their bonuses high. They didn't do it to save other people's jobs. So they, they separate those out. And what they, normative values are outside the realm of the business, So if you're blind to ethics, or you have a propensity to rationalize or turn the other way or don't look, that is this concept they're talking about of normative myopia. In marketing myopia is, if it's not broke, I mean, people just look at something the same way all the time. And myopia is that kind of no peripheral vision. They just stare straight ahead. So why act in an ethical manner when you're leading? Just like everything else, it's good for business. All right. You can always start there and know that that's right. Now down here, they have it as the fourth bullet point right here. But it's good for business for a number of reasons. You don't get fined as much, which means you don't have to give money away to the government or wherever the entity, OSHA or whoever the entity is that's fining you, so you can keep that in the company. You can create a competitive advantage that's sustainable, because people will say, I'd rather do business with them because they have a great reputation for being honest and ethical, and they've been around a while because they're straight shooters. And other companies, well, even if they just started up, they wouldn't have that same competitive advantage. It spreads throughout the company, and perhaps one of the most overlooked but important ones, higher employee satisfaction and employee commitment. Now, why does that matter? Because it's cheaper, less expensive, I should say, to keep an employee than always be turning employees and hiring new ones. You have to hire them and train them, get them into work, and they go, this place is crooked as a dog's hind leg, and they leave. Yeah, that's fine. We'll hire somebody else. It's cheaper, less expensive on the company, which adds to the bottom line, which are profits. If employees are satisfied where they work, even proud of where they work, and they're committed to it, committed to the workplace, and tell people about it, and they're happy to be there. So there's a couple of approaches that the authors talk about in the book. The integrity-based approach. Leaders take responsibility for the firm's culture and hold employees accountable. To hold employees accountable, though, you have to lead by example. You can't set a terrible example and then want to hold the employees accountable for acting right and making ethical decisions. So it takes a leader that's doing the right thing. They usually have chief officers, HR managers, board members involved with ethics and compliance. So rather than just having an ethics department that has 3 people in it, and they make everybody take training videos and sign a sheet of paper. Again, going back to the holistic approach of the whole company. If everybody's involved, if all the stakeholders are involved, then everybody knows that it means something to the whole firm. It's just not something that we just watch 3 videos and sign a slip of paper and move along. Empowers employees. Employees like to be empowered, most of them. Some don't. They don't want to have a managerial position. They don't want to be empowered. They don't want to make decisions. Don't want to be responsible for them. But if you have a whole company approach, you'll discover things that before they become a problem, that they're occurring. You say, that could be a problem. I'll give you an example. When I was on board of directors for a philanthropy, a charity, I was elected president, and one of the first things I noticed was that it only took one signature to write a check, and that could be me or the treasurer. So I said, well, I know I'm a good person, but I don't think that's a good policy. So I rewrote the rules, and any check over $50 had to have 2 signatures on it. And I said, we need to reprint all the checks with 2 signature lines. And anything over $50 has to have 2 signatures on it. Me and another person that was on the board. That way, I couldn't spend money without over $50 that without having approval of somebody else. In other words, somebody else knowing about it and being involved. I did that for my own protection, but it's just a good policy. So nothing ever happened prior to me making that change, but it could have. And when you're a charity or a tax exempt organization like that, it's important that you, that you fly right. So business changes. Things change all the time. Nothing stays the same. If your target market today are new parents, in 10 years, it'll be middle school parents. And 10 years after that, they'll be college parents. So the same people change, for example, in marketing throughout. Always changes. You always have to stay on top of your market. So same thing in business. Things change, rules change. Societal norms change. Women used to get arrested for wearing one-piece, bathing suits, at the beach. But today that seems crazy. But it was the case at one point, not too long ago. I'm 55 years old, and I remember when my grandmother was a young woman, she told me that she couldn't vote. Women didn't have the vote. Now, again, I'm 55, and it was my grandmother, but I mean, it's not that long ago that some things were dramatically different, but things change, they're dynamic. And ethical leaders use an integrity and a compliance combination. What does that mean? It's like training a dog. Or, well, let's just go with training a dog. I was going to say or raising a kid, but let's stay with dogs and not get humans involved. There's 2 ways you can train a dog. Every time they do something, you're trying to train them to do a trick, they do something bad, you can, hit them with a newspaper or a stick or whatever. Or a better result you get is when they do something right, reward them. Love them up, pat them on the head, give them a treat. You do that long enough, they will want to do those things where they get rewards and treats and affection. And the bad behaviors will just be crowded out by good behaviors. So in a company, you can go around and say, if you do this, we're going to dock your pay, we're going to dock your vacation, you're going to put on suspension, you're going to do this, you're going to do that, that's compliance. The integrity side of it would be somebody did something right, and you mentioned that in the company newsletter, that you caught Amber Smith doing a good, right, and ethical thing, and she got a $50 gift card somewhere or something, and that encourages good behavior, and it crowds out the bad behavior. There's no benefit to it. So you can lead with a stick, or you can lead with a carrot. Generally, you have to use a combination of both. So let's talk about leader types. An unethical leader, that's pretty simple, right? We're going to talk about the unethical leader, the apathetic leader, and the first, the unethical leader. Generally does whatever it takes to achieve the organization's objectives and his or her own objectives. They may be working for their own kick. All right. Rules are kind of optional, and I know we're breaking the law here, but by doing that, we're able to hire more people. We're able to put more people out on the job, and nobody's ever going to find out, and blah blah blah. They have those people categorized as they're looking for ways to. These people typically look for ways to get around things rather than just saying, let's just do the right thing. It might cost us a few more dollars right now, but we go to bed at night, everything's great. The apathetic leader really doesn't care much. Not necessarily unethical, but they care very little for ethics within the company. They kind of view it as relative or optional in a business context. Now, at home or dealing with their friends, they may act a different way, but at business, hey, it's business, right? Everybody expects you to cut those throats and cut those corners in business. And the employees, will see these leaders, and they don't really see that compared to the other guy that runs the other side of the shop floor. Let me see, they act completely different. I believe this guy's a weasel. And when you do that, you don't respect the leader, then really it's hard to be a leader when your followers don't respect you. So that's the apathetic leader. And then, of course, we have the ethical leader. They include ethics at every operational level and stage the decision-making process. Okay? They view employee collaboration as an important resource. In other words, meeting with the frontline workers is not something that they just have to do to check the box. They say, well, did your line workers get input? Oh, yeah. Well, we met for 30 minutes, had some coffee, talked over. They view that as, they might really know what's going on down there, whereas I just might have an abstract idea. So they try to be participative for people to give their feedback, try to remove the power dynamic between boss and worker, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. And, they model the values that they promote. They say this is the way we ought to do, then they model that and they do it. And if you want to build a strong culture, strong ethical culture in business, those are the traits that you should be an exemplar for. Then we have the psychopathic leader. Luckily, there's not a lot of these, but there are some. You may be familiar with some in your workplace or maybe in the news or something you've read about. Very little conscience, if any. Think a lot of themselves, grandiose. None of this, only I can do this. If it wasn't for me, this place would fall apart. Empathy, don't know what it is. All right, but just go to work. I don't care if both your legs fell off, your grandmother got hit by a reindeer. Rule breakers. I'm a rule breaker. Proud of it. Now, they might be a little bit charming superficially, but you wouldn't want to hang out with them, right? You want to be able to spot these people and not put them in positions of leadership, because the end result is going to be trouble. You're going to have conflict, employee turnover, heavier workloads. People are going to hate to go to work, so they'll either flake out or, one day a week, or just quit. And you don't want people to, every Sunday afternoon, just be depressed because they have to go to work on Monday morning. I was in a situation like that once, and I can tell you it's miserable. So figure 11.2 is a graphical representation of some different conflict management styles. You may recognize yourself in here. You may recognize your current boss in here, or somebody you know, or maybe somebody you worked for in the past. And it's good to be able to recognize these types of people, whether you're working for them now or when you're interviewing to work for them. Because, if you get along with one type better than the other, then you need to think about that when you're, taking a job. We'll go left to right, top to bottom. So, competing, avoiding, accommodating, collaborating, and compromising. So, leaders with a competing conflict management style are highly assertive, but not very cooperative. All right, so highly assertive, but not very cooperative in the top left quadrant. Competing leaders believe in winning at all costs. Right? Avoiding. These are people I do not get along with myself personally. It's hard for me to work with them, but they're there. And so an avoiding leader, they're not very effective because they avoid conflict at all costs, even if it leads to misconduct or wrongdoing. They will turn a blind eye to it because they just hate conflict. Now, everybody hates conflict. If you're normal, you hate conflict. But there comes a time when you have to say, you know, I really don't want to go fire that guy, but I've got to. Or he's going to kill himself or somebody else and get us in trouble. And I just got to go do it. I know he's going to go crazy, but I still have to do it. So that's an avoiding style. Accommodating. Leaders that have that style, they're highly cooperative, but non-assertive. So they'll give in, even if it means sacrificing their own issues and values. Even if they totally disagree with it, they'll just give in. Because, you know, they're not assertive people. And there are people that are not assertive. And that's fine. You need those people. That's what makes the world go around, all kinds of different people. And there may be a business where you can use that type of manager. You need to be able to recognize that that's what they are. And in this lower right quadrant, they call it accommodating. And then we have collaborating. Leaders who adopt a collaborating style, cooperative and assertive, rather than immediately compromising and folding up on their position. Collaborative leaders collaborate with others to maybe find a creative way and try to get a beneficial solution. So there's a win-win, not a win-lose. So they're assertive, but they also want to cooperate and kind of, you know, get things done, because the end result is, are you getting it done? Then the center, kind of, you know, covering all four of those quadrants, compromising. And these types of managers or leaders, I believe the best approach to resolving conflicts is for each side to give something up in order to gain something of value. So you want shorter hours, but you're not going to get that. So you give that up. And these people, this group over here wants this to rotate jobs, so we'll give that up. And we come up with a situation where nobody gets 100% of what they want, but both sides get 85% of what they want. Now, which is best? Well, it depends. It just depends on what the situation is. There's a place, you know, a good leader, even though they're primarily at their core a certain type of person, a certain style of leader. A good manager or leader can use different styles depending on the situation. If you're dealing with non-assertive employees, it's probably, you know, maybe a compromising situation is not going to work out because they're too afraid to say anything. So you'll walk away and think, okay, well, it was good. Everybody gave up a little something, but, you know, they didn't really want to give it up. They just gave it up, and now they're upset, but you wouldn't know it because they themselves were non-assertive. They didn't speak up for themselves. So you say, well, speak up for yourself. And, you know, they say, well, they did the best they could. So which is right? It depends on the situation. But it's best to know yourself. If you've ever taken the Myers-Briggs personality assessment, which I think everybody does, and maybe a capstone management class or something, I'm not sure. I might be wrong on that. I probably should have left that alone. But if you ever taken the Myers-Briggs, you'll know, you know, what your type is and how you generally will behave. People generally have two different ways they behave. The way they generally behave day in, day out, and then under pressure, how do they behave? It's good to know that about yourself. It's good to know that about others. So in your classes, every student hates it. Every professor hates it. Group projects. Am I right? Sitting there in front of your computer, you can nod your head. Because you hate it, and I hate it. So why do we do it? Well, because that's the way the world is organized, especially of late. You will get put into groups at work to do different things, small groups, and they're very popular. Now, me personally, I prefer projects where the group is one and it's me, and I'm responsible for the success or failure of it and my own timeline. So I'm with you. I don't really like group work. However, am I involved in it? Oh, yeah. Sometimes you have to have a committee, and sometimes you need a committee. So what is groupthink? That occurs when one or more group members feel pressured to conform to the group's decision, even if they personally disagree. Now, how do you know that somebody in your group is feels pressure to conform? Well, if you're an assertive type A individual, which I am, I have to monitor myself and say, and think, okay, I am steamrolling that person. Not on purpose, but that's what's happening. Because they're maybe I just frighten them or something. Sometimes I don't realize it. It takes somebody else to tell me. So, I think she would really rather that we did it this way, but she's afraid to say anything because, you're in there carrying on, drawing the board and carrying forward. And I go, okay, well, then I need to act differently. So you need to know how it happens, know yourself, allow open and honest discussions that encourage critiques, questioning, and criticism. Be able to be criticized and listen to it. As academics, that's all we do. We criticize others, and then we are criticized because the big part of our job is research and publishing, and we also review others' research that they're trying to get published. And our job is to criticize it to quote unquote make it better. And we submit to a journal. It gets reviewed, and their job is to criticize it. So I'm kind of, I'm used to it now. Some people aren't, but I would encourage you to get used to it. And I had a professor tell me one time, to number 3, she said, if it wasn't hard on you, it would just mean that I didn't care. Would you rather me not care? And I thought to myself, yes, I'd rather you not care. It'd be easier on me. But not really, because the end result was much, much, much better because I was always thinking, how's she going to react? So on important matters, bring in the appropriate subject matter experts. You're not an expert in everything, even if you think you are. And, I know that from experience. I know what I know, but I'm also smart enough to know what I don't know. Bring in other people so you don't try to jam a square peg in a round hole. And peer review. If you're in a workplace and you say, okay, our job is to put together a new process for whatever, submitting expenses and having them paid, you come up with it. You go, that is awesome. Aren't we something? We are super good, all of us. We're all handsome and pretty and smart, and we are geniuses. Well, take that and give it to somebody else, another group of 2 to 3 people, and say, hey, you mind going over this? And I guarantee you, it won't be perfect. Everything can always be made better, no matter how long you worked on it. And you may have missed something that they wouldn't miss. And just as an aside, if you're putting together a group of people to make a decision about something, I never want to be in a group of people where everyone is just like me. A 55-year-old white man, from Georgia. That's no way to make a good decision. I want a couple of females, and a minority, and somebody with a different level of education or in a different area than me. I want somebody from accounting to be in there, even though it might not have anything to do with accounting, because better decisions are made that way. Because you bring in a bunch of different a bunch of different viewpoints, and you never, at the end, you won't miss anything. So leader-follower relationships, leader-follower congruence. If you've learned about goal congruence in management, that's when management has goals and employees have goals. And what they do is, say management sets up a pay structure, whereas when the employee is maximizing their pay, they're accomplishing management's goals. And they're also accomplishing their goals because they're making more money. And that's called goal congruence. So leader-follower congruence. That's when leaders and followers share the same vision, ethical expectations, and objectives. So leader-follower leader exchange theory, or that leaders form unique relationships with followers throughout social interactions. So it can be social interactions at work or outside of work, right? So that you learn more about your employees. Employees learn more about management. They say, oh, he is human. He has a family. He has a small child. Look how nice he is with them. He might not be a terrible person after all, even though he's, hitting our time cards pretty good. So it's important, if we use that theory, for leaders to communicate and interact frequently with employees. Now, some leaders don't want to do that, but good leaders generally do, because they want to know what's going on. They want to know, them as a person. They want to know the employees. Maybe they don't want to be best buddies and go bowling every Friday night or whatever they do, but they want to know them, as people. So power differences in workplace politics, right? There are differences between managers and employees in power. And there's several different bases for power, which we're not going to go into right at this juncture. But, referent power and expert power, just think those different bases for power. You should try to knock those down. If you're a manager and you call in some subordinates into your office, at a minimum, don't sit behind your desk. Come out and sit with them at a table. Either that, or if you don't do that, you're not going to get you're not going to get their unvarnished opinion. In the military, you'll often, I grew up in a Navy family, so you'd often hear permission to speak frankly, to an officer or a higher ranking person. That means they want to share their opinion without being, reverential to the higher ranking officer. Sometimes people go, permission denied. I don't want to hear it. Or, yeah, and they go, well, Bill, I think we ought to do this. But they'll ask that first. Power differences can be tough and can jam up decision making if you don't handle them right, as can political workplaces. I've worked places where you have to remember that she doesn't speak to him because of something that happened in the past, and he doesn't speak to that guy because they had a tiff about something, or they were fighting for money, and these two guys, they hate those girls, and it's terrible. Sometimes the urge to compete with each other can become so bad that they hurt the company because they're competing so hard against each other, trying to hurt the other, bring the other one down, lift themselves up. So you have to watch for that when you're looking at management relationships. And feedback. You can have informal feedback, like, Bill, what do you think of the vacation? What do you think about being able to keep your vacation days? While you're making a cup of coffee out there on the plant floor or something. Or you can have formal feedback. like a yearly review. Every year I get a yearly review, and say, okay, what were your goals? Did you accomplish them? Here's what we like. Here's what we don't like. That's more formal, but that doesn't mean that there's not a grapevine at work, and you can't get great feedback informally, just from talking to people and being accessible. So we have transactional leaders. We're talking about leadership styles. Everything's a transaction. Oh, you'd like a raise? Well, I want you to do this. Everything's a transaction. If you drive that truck there, I'll give you next Wednesday off or whatever. As opposed to transformational leaders, they try to raise everybody's level of commitment and trust and motivation and not view everything as a transaction, right? Which is best? It depends. Sometimes that's all your employees want is a transaction. They want a paycheck. That's it. They don't want to run anything. They don't want to learn anything more. They don't want to move up the ranks. They don't want extra responsibility. They're going to work by the hour. They want to get paid by the hour, and that's it. So for them, you might want to, the style you have is a transactional style, maybe what they want. Whereas other people might want to see themselves with the company long term, and you might want to handle them a little bit differently. Both can be good, or either one can be bad. Depends on how you handle them. Then we have authentic leaders, passionate about the company. They live out the corporate values, and they form long-term relationships with employees and other stakeholders, vendors, people they buy from, people they sell to, the community where they're located. I would always want to be viewed as an authentic leader. I am what I am, and I have a relationship with all those. You remember, we have the primary stakeholders, and then we have secondary stakeholders. I would like to, I think they're all important, but you have to have the primary stakeholders. Secondary stakeholders you can live without, but it's nice to have them. You would like to, when you're in the community, you would like to know that, you ride by the food bank and you say, we helped fund that food bank. And I have a level of pride about it, or see some of our employees out there volunteering, and makes you feel good about yourself when you look in the mirror at night. Not too big on acronyms, but this was pretty good. I'm not saying it's the greatest, but they give what is this, figure 11.4? Radar, lightning, golden earrings, big radio hit. Radar love. It's like a SWOT analysis. I use a SWOT analysis probably every week on something. Deciding whether to buy a robotic lawnmower. I'm going to go through the pace of those strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. When it comes to ethics, this is a good model. Recognize, learn how to recognize. One can be avoid, right? Whenever possible, just avoid it. Avoid it personally and avoid it within the company. Detect or discover risk areas. How can you know all the risk areas? You can talk to people. You can meet with people from different areas of the business and ask them. They'll be able to tell you things that you've never even thought about because they do it every day. Answer stakeholder concerns, whether it be an email or a letter or somebody, say they're a customer and they just kind of make contact with you, whatever. Don't turn a blind eye to it. Do something about it. Even if at the end you think it's all right, you just let it go. And then recover, right? So if there's a weakness, something happens, recover from it as quick as you can. In the services marketing literature, there's a concept called service failure and service recovery. And service failure would be you go to a restaurant and it takes an hour to get your food because, 3 of the cooks left and one of them quit, set the kitchen on fire or something. That's not your fault. It's the manager's fault. They had a service failure. And, but they might come back and go, look, I apologize for that. And I apologize for all this mess. And your meal is on the house. That's called a service recovery. And literature has shown that a proper service recovery can make a customer a more loyal customer, even though you failed them to start. But you recovered with a recovery that they thought was adequate. Same thing. You can have an ethics lapse like Wells Fargo did, open up accounts for people. Right now they're running television advertisements and digital advertisements to tell people about all the changes they've made. Facebook's doing the same thing. We started off together this way, and then we got a little bit off course, but now we're coming back. They're all trying a recovery. And if they're successful, that could be good for business. So just because you have a failure doesn't mean that, you're stuck with it. You're stuck with it for life. So we'll end chapter 11 with the radar model. Again, not the same radar model as Golden Earrings' big radio hit, which I know you're all familiar. But the one from chapter 11, the Ferrell, Frederick and Ferrell textbook. With that, I bid you adieu and study hard.